Well, our defense analyst, Oubai Shahbandar, is in Washington for us, watching the events of the last few hours. And we've had press conferences now from the President of the United States and also from the Pentagon. Just remind us of what they had to say.
Well, the sun is now rising in Damascus as all sides here are evaluating the aftermath. We heard from President Donald Trump in his statement as American and British and French warplanes and missiles were striking Assad regime chemical weapon production and storage facilities. We heard from President Trump that the strikes were specifically aimed at neutralizing the Assad regime's chemical weapon infrastructure. And that, of course, meant that these strikes struck a number of military bases across Syria, from around Damascus and in Homs province and in eastern Syria. This was a significant wave of strikes that hit the Syrian Scientific Research Center complexes around Damascus and in western Homs province. Of course, this research facility does more than just simple research and development. They produce these chemical weapons, they store them, they outfit them on ballistic missiles and on gas cylinders, and that, of course, is how the Assad regime was able to launch these chemical weapon strikes just a few days ago against innocent civilians in the Damascus suburb of Douma. We heard a very common theme amongst President Trump's statement and Prime Minister Theresa May when they both spoke about the horrific nature of the chemical weapon attack launched by the Assad regime against civilians and the need for the international community to ensure that such chemical weapon strikes no longer become a norm and cannot allow such chemical weapon usage against civilians to set a new precedent. So that focus amongst these two nations, or these two leaders, being very specific to stopping the Assad regime's chemical weapons production capability. Of course, the Assad regime was supposed to hand over its chemical weapons stockpile in its entirety back in 2013 as part of a deal negotiated between the US and Russia. Clearly, this was not the case. Now, that being said, it's a question of what will come next. The Assad regime still maintains its Air Force capability, its missile capability to use against innocent Syrians. And of course, that means that even if the Assad regime does not use chemical weapons moving forward, they still have a military capability, a conventional military capability, as the Syrian civil war moves into its 7th year. As you noted earlier, this wave of airstrikes seems to be the only planned wave of strikes against the Assad regime, but it does seem to be significant. We are waiting to see a full evaluation of the aftermath of these strikes and how destructive they were against their intended targets as the sun rises in Damascus and as the Pentagon and military leaders in London and Paris also confer, and we will hopefully find out more. But it seems that the Assad regime was hit, and it was hit hard, and President Trump made very clear that, along with Prime Minister Theresa May, that no further chemical weapon use by the Assad regime will be tolerated moving forward, although the Assad regime seems to have been able to survive and to live another day.
Oubai Shahbandar in Washington, thank you very much.